Alright, again from Rain Country, and we have another addition to our preparedness series. And what is this, number 4?
I think this would be number 4.
Okay.
Should be.
And we're going to talk about ways of heating. That's right.
Heating and cooking.
Heating and cooking. Multiple heat sources, multiple ways of cooking is something that you really ought to be considering if you are preparing. We have multiple ways of heating. Our primary source of heat is wood. We do have electric backup. We don't use that. We have a lot of our breakers shut off for any of our baseboard heaters.
We've had those shut off since we moved in.
Right, and our pick-a-watt heaters, we have little wall heaters that we have shut off. If the weather gets too cold and we can't keep up with our wood heat, which is not a problem, it's never been a problem, then we can resort to falling back and in the 2 is 1, 1 is none mode of utilizing the public power. What happens if we don't have any public power or we don't have any firewood, which is we have probably 3 years worth of firewood sitting here on the property. And we also have propane, we have a propane heater, but we also have
Isn't that kerosene heater?
yeah, that was the word I was looking for. We also have a kerosene heater. If push came to shove and we had a freak storm and the power went out, trees were down everywhere, had a massive earthquake or any other thing that you can think of that end of the world type of stuff you can think about, or realistic things that happen every year. We have alternate ways of heating, and so if push come to shove, we've thought about these things, thought them through. We could put blankets up in certain areas of the house and quarter off different sections of the house or different rooms, and we would be just fine with our wood stove. So things to think about in your house, where you're at, what's your location, what kind of things, what kind of natural or man-made disasters can happen where you are, and what are you going to do to mitigate those issues if issues come along.
Now on to the other things that you can do to make the most out of that heat is to take like rolled up towels and stick them in the track of your windows, sliding glass doors, and all that kind of stuff, and that will help keep your warm air from leaching out through the windows and doors. Also consider heavy drapes or making, one thing I would like to do is make quilts, window quilts. That's actually an old-fashioned thing that they used to do. They made special quilts that fit over each window, and I've considered doing that. For now, what I've done is just made simple curtains out of sheets, and I make them look nice, and I have them over all of our sliding glass doors and any window I can possibly get them over. And it's amazing how even those thin sheets, bunched up really good, just making sure those are shut when it gets really cold will help prevent the cold air from coming in and the heat from escaping out, even just something like that. Now, a couple other things that we haven't done yet, but we've thought about, is you can take bubble wrap, like save all your bubble wrap of all sizes, and all you have to do is take a spray bottle with just plain water in it and spray your windows, and then just stick the bubble wrap on there, and it will stay in place as long as you need it. And then when the cold months are over, you just peel it off, and it's a simple way to insulate your windows if needed. These are some of these things I'm mentioning, like the towels and the rags and stuff in the windowsills. I do that, and that's something that's simple, it's cheap, you can just take them out and wash them at any time. But as far as some of the more extreme methods, those are going to be things that we would reserve for if we really, really had to. And to go even more extreme than that, if you're in a situation where you don't have any power you have very little heat, or you have to really conserve your heat, or whatever it is, you can also consider putting up a tent in the middle of your living room or whatever room, and that's where you can sleep at night and you can stay warmer, you know, sleeping in the tent than in your bedroom that's maybe unheated. And just some thoughts to consider. So it might be a good idea to have a small 2-man tent or whatever on hand to do that. We actually have one for that purpose in case we ever need to, but also for camping.
Well, some of those things might sound like extreme measures, but
you just never know.
What if, you know, we're not exempt from calamity or different things like that. We're not, you know, you look at the news and you can see all these other places that are having all these different problems. And what would exempt you, what would exempt us from experiencing those same issues? So it's not a bad idea to start thinking about these things. You know, think, what, you know, put a tent up in your house? That sounds, you know, kind of odd, but
yeah, we're talking about extreme methods.
Might never have to do that, but there are some things that you should probably consider in the event that you actually have to do that.
Right.
You know, the other thing Mrs. Rain does is she builds these blankets, a lot of these really heavy denim quilts out of old jeans, different things.
And then I line the back of them with flannel to make them
right,
extra
and so
warm.
they're good, heavy. Air can't really pass through them like a Afghan or something like that. So the, you know, think of layers, sweaters, coats, jackets, all those things would be a alternate source of heat in the event that you ran out of firewood or ran out of propane or ran out of any other fuel source to be able to utilize for heating, including your electricity. You might have very reliable heat sources, very reliable electric, or even a natural gas furnace. What happens if your furnace fails? You know, those are some things. When is it going to fail? It's going to fail in the winter.
Yep.
So, just, you know, just some things to consider, and you know, it doesn't hurt to have 2, 3, 4, 5 different options in the event that that's a necessary thing to resort to. So
now on to our alternate ways of cooking. Of course, you know that we have the wood stove. It is not a cook stove. It is just a wood stove for heating the house. However, we picked out this particular wood stove because of its large flat surface, and you would have seen it in some of my other cooking videos. And since we have a fire going usually pretty much 9 months out of the year here, then that is also where I do most of my cooking and even baking. Now, in the summertime, I like to use the rocket stove and the toaster oven for baking plugged into our solar outlet, or my Solarvore solar oven. I actually have 2 of them, and the first one we got 5 or 6 years ago, and I use it every summer, and especially for doing roasts and whole chickens, soups and things like that. It's just really ideal on a sunny day. Fish, it's really great for cooking fish even on a cloudy day. In fact, I have a video on cooking fish in it on a cloudy day here. Surprisingly enough, it worked. In a couple hours, the fish was cooked.
We get cloudy days here.
A lot, yeah. So even in the summer, but and of course we still have electricity, but it's actually really rare that we use our electricity for cooking and baking, except my toaster oven in the winter time, because we don't collect enough solar power to run, you know, something that draws so much power like the toaster oven. But I really don't have a need for the conventional oven, but it's there in case I do. So what are some other methods? Because when it comes to baking bread and baking pies, I can do pretty much anything on my wood stove. But to get something where I want it to be browned on top, like, you know, breads and pies, that's when I usually rely on my toaster oven. So what do I do if I don't have we don't have public power? I don't have enough solar power to run the toaster oven, then what am I going to do if I want to make a loaf of bread or a pie? Well, we have this really great, what is the brand? Is it a Coleman?
Oh.
It's sitting right there.
All right. This is our Camp Chef. It runs off of propane. We have propane bottles that hook up to it. Basically, that's just a camp stove. You just take camping with you. Along with that little oven, it's got 2 burners on the top, and it runs completely off propane. We also have several gas stoves, you know, the little green cook stoves that have the 2 burners on the top and just run off of the white gas or Coleman fuel. We also have a 3,000 watt Honda generator, and you can hook hot plates up. We also have hot plates. We have that little toaster oven. You know, if you decide to get a little generator, you want to make sure you get a generator that's going to be big enough to run your appliances and so on. Every appliance, you can look on the back and you can see the wattage draw on that. It should give you a wattage, a voltage, and an amperage rating. So anyways, just check your power usage and see if it's going to match what your appliance is going to need. For instance, like our 3,000 watt generator, can you run a 1,500 watt hot plate on it or 1,800 watt hot plate on there? Yes, you can. Can you run that hot plate plus your freezer plus your refrigerator? You need to add up all of those wattages and make sure it doesn't exceed your generator's output. So anyway, we have that. We have a generator for that.
And then, like you said about the hot plates, I also use those in the summertime quite a bit as I cook on the hot plates. I just set them on top of my conventional stove, and those are plugged. Those run off of our solar power. So we have that option when we don't have fires burning in a wood stove. We've got our hot plates and all these other things that we can use either off with the solar or with another fire source such as the rocket stove. And I have videos of me cooking on all these different sources except for the camp oven. So we have had this camp oven for a few years now, but it wasn't until recently that I finally remembered I needed to practice using it for baking with. Because every source that you use is going to be a little bit different in the way it works. Now, I had assumed that this camp oven would work pretty similar to my toaster oven in the way it baked. I'm really glad that I took the time to practice on it a couple of times recently, baking some bread in it, because it doesn't quite work the way I expected, but it works great. There's just some tricks involved in making it work properly to get a good loaf of bread where it's nice and brown on top the way you'd want it. And I'm going to be doing some more practicing with it. I need to practice baking pies in it and other things like that that I want to get browned on top. And I will be doing videos on that down the road. Now, when it comes to roasting the chicken, I don't have a problem roasting the chicken on top of my wood stove and getting it browned on top, doing it in a roasting pan with a lid, the granite ware. That works great for a chicken. It does not seem to work great for bread, though, for some reason, for browning on top, but it works for chicken. I don't know what the difference is, but at any rate, just got to keep practicing this stuff. Just like I said in my post about the laundry, I think I might have said it in the video I did about the antique irons and our off-grid laundry system, but I also made a post about it. We have this system for our backup, but it doesn't mean it just sits there and doesn't get used. I practice with it whenever I have the time, and I actually enjoy it, but I have to practice with it so I'll know how to use it. I don't want to have the stress of trying to figure out how to work these things when, you know, when we're in the middle of an already very stressful situation, especially if it is a major disaster. It's already going to be very stressful, so you want to be able to practice cooking, baking, heating, whatever, and be ready for that. Don't just buy things and have them sit there. Use them. You must use them. And learn how they work. The hot plates are the same way. I have these hot plates and I use them, and you'll see them in my videos, and they work very differently than cooking on my wood stove or cooking on top of the conventional stove or using a propane like a camp stove or the camp stove that's on top of the camp oven, because it's got propane burners too. Everything's very different. Practice with all of them, and it's fun too. Oh, and the rocket stove too. That also takes practice. And if you watched my videos over the summer, my cooking videos, you would have seen quite a few where I was using the rocket stove to cook all kinds of different things, even biscuits and gravy. And getting the biscuits brown on both sides. It can be done. There's a trick to it.
Well, the other thing to also mention, to capitalize on what she said, you have to, it's one thing to purchase a bunch of stuff and have it sit around, but it's another thing to know how to use it. For instance, the little oven that I just showed you, okay, it's okay to buy that oven. You could even learn how to operate that thing on the fly if you need to. Anybody who's cooked with a conventional oven or a wood stove or cooked with any heat source at all, you can use some of those skills in order to, you know, run that thing just on a whim. You might burn whatever it is you're cooking or might undercook it, but it's just a good idea to practice those things before the emergency arises, to like Mrs. Rain said.
Because the way this heats up is different too.
Keep that stress level down. What I want to add to that is that, okay, well, we got this stove. What do we need to run this thing? Okay, well, yeah. Some people might say, well, you need a can of propane. All right, so you hook up a bottle of propane. Or can you hook it up? Do you have the right hoses? Do you have the right fittings? Do you have everything that you need in order to augment your smooth operation of that oven? Okay, well, you got propane. Well, how long does that propane last? You know, are you going to get one cooking out of it? You know, say three gallons of propane. How long is that going to last you? You got more? Okay, well, maybe we should start thinking about getting more propane to keep on hand, or more natural gas, or more different types of fuel to run whatever it is you got to heat or cook with. So. The other thing I wanted, while Mrs. Rain was talking, I was listening to her, but I was also trying to think of all things to add to that, and that is to make sure that you're well ventilated. If you're cooking with fire, if you're cooking with propane, if you're heating your house with kerosene, then you want to make sure that you have it well ventilated, because those things put off carbon monoxide, and which is a silent killer. Kerosene also puts off a particular smell, and for me it gives me headaches. So when you start getting headaches and things like that, you got specific smells, you really need to consider those and prepare to ventilate, so you don't die of carbon monoxide poisoning or something of that effect. So consider safety when you're having alternate forms of heating and cooking.
Yeah, and there are actually quite a few other ways that you can heat small areas, like with the flower pot method, the flower pot inside a flower pot. Some other options for cooking that I know of, or that I don't have or have not tried yet, or I think it's called the Wonder Box. I actually was going to make myself one day and had the pieces all cut out and never finished it. And maybe someday I'll do that. But that's something that's interesting you may want to look into. You would still have to heat your food up with another source, but you can conserve a lot of energy. So let's say you're making a roast or a soup, you heat it up and then you put it inside this insulated little fabric box or bag, whatever you want to call it, and then put the lid on, and then it will finish cooking. Just let it sit there, and it insulates it so well that it finishes cooking the soup or whatever it is you got, and then you can save a lot of your propane or whatever it is that or even your firewood.
So what happens when you don't have plan F to your ABC? you run out of options to cook. What do you do then? Having canned meat on the shelf, having pre-cooked foods is always an excellent thing to do, always an excellent thing to keep in your car. In the event that you are in a real conservation mode where, gosh, you know, we don't have much firewood left, we better save on our gasoline, we need to save on our propane. Tonight we're just going to eat canned meat.
Straight out of the jar. It's pretty tasty.
Right, so canned chili, canned meat,
Beef
those things are
jerky,
okay.
elk
Beef
jerky.
pemmican, all those different things. Doritos?
No. GMO bad.
Snickers bars? No? Anyway.
Sinner.
Anyway, any of these things that you can put on the shelf that are shelf stable, consider doing some of those things that you can put on in your pantry or in your stores that would not take a heat source to have to eat.
Right. So, yeah, and there's all kinds of things like that. So just great.
A lot of these videos that we're putting together are fairly impromptu.
Yeah.
And so
We're not scripted, in case you haven't noticed.
Right. Most of you probably have noticed that we're not scripted.
That's why you might see bloopers at the end of some of these videos.
I think we're gonna probably have some at the end of this one. I have a vision. But anyway, those are just some of the things. There are several different ways of preserving and cooking and heating.
Conserving heat. Sorry,
and
gotta throw that in.
conserving,
Conserving
exactly. I mean, that is conservation is what, you know, what you really need to be considering, especially in a situation that's an emergency. You know,
Right.
every resource is precious, more precious all the time, like your water and your food, your fuel, ways of heating. All those things are precious commodities. So when there is none, that's when you really start thinking about the value of it. So we've been getting excellent feedback on our later videos.
Really great stuff.
And we really appreciate that. We welcome any and all comments. Please drop in and share with us any practical information that you might have. Every area that in the country and across the world all have a little bit different challenges that they have to overcome. Right. And heating and cooking, yeah, we all cook with fire, you know. I've been doing that since the dawn of time. But, you know, everybody does things just a little bit different. Everybody has just a little bit different gadget that they use, you know. So share those things with us. And so all of us can learn together.
Yeah, share with us what you've tried that works well for you, but also share with us what you've tried that you thought was an epic failure, because there's all kinds of there's all kinds of different things out there you can purchase, or different ideas that some seem like they might be really cool, but maybe they're not so cool, or hot, as the case may be. So share with us your experiences. We're really interested in learning, and I know those people that have been interjecting and commenting. A lot of the other commenters have come through and really enjoyed reading what you have to say as well. So really great discussions, and that's what we like to see, the inputs. Just we're still trying to keep up on one of our last videos, and so we got to finish out this video so we can get back to replying to the comments, because they're pouring in and we're loving it. It's great, you guys. So
check out our other videos on this preparedness series. Hopefully there's something you can glean from those things. Check those videos out, and also add, put your comments in there. Yeah, I mean, we just put that video out on the best places
to homestead.
Yeah, the best places to homestead.
We're getting lots
of feedback, and I mean, this is no guarantee that we're going to move anywhere. We're just looking at our options, our future options.
All right, well, thanks for watching.
Take care.
And God bless.
Or shelf stable, shelf stable, and shush.
Okay. Shelf stable.
Shelf stable and shoulder shim. Mom, you leave me all alone in front of the camera.
I'm gonna cut it out, don't worry.
Mom, I need you as a security blanket, Mom. Mom? I'm scared, Mom. Mom?